good day. It is a wonderful time to enter into God's presence and reflect and listen for what God might say to us through Scripture and through this devotion. And so we have been walking through Luke chapter 6, in which God is shaping us, hopefully, into God's kingdom of people from all tribes, every nation. In the midst of a divisive season, let us grow together. And if you would just set your heart, your eyes, your ears on God, and take a moment to pray and to reflect before we enter into our scripture reading today.
It is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. It is well. It is well with my soul.
Our scripture reading today comes from Luke chapter 6, verse 22. And as we've been doing, I'm going to set the scene by reading Jesus coming to the disciples and starting to give his teaching. So hear these words from Luke. Jesus came down with them and stood on a level place, with a great crowd of his disciples and a great multitude of people from all Judea, Jerusalem, and the coast of Tyre and Sidon. And then Jesus looked up at his disciples and said, "Blessed are you when people hate you, and when they exclude you, revel you, and defame you on account of the Son of Man." The word of the Lord. I want to start by inviting you to discern and ask questions about why you are being persecuted, why you are being hated or excluded or pushed away. We can't always know the answer to it. Sometimes there is no rational answer because it has not been a rational decision that leads to your mistreatment. But this text is about when you are persecuted for the sake of Jesus, when you are persecuted on account of following after what God has invited you into and where God is leading you and taking you. And so it is the type of persecution that comes because you are following and committed to the work of good, loving justice and peace that God invites you into. Because there's plenty of reasons that people do push back and resist us. Some of those are our own. You know, it's when we are short with people, when we're rude to people, when we've mistreated people. And not that there's ever any type of mistreatment that is good. But Jesus' word today is about those who are called and are following God's goodness. And when you follow that goodness, it is often met with resistance. And so in that vein, in that line of thought in which we are invited into thinking today, why do you feel the pushback, the persecution that you feel in your life? Spend time reflecting and thinking, is it because I am faithfully following God, or is it because of something else? And so what does Jesus' word for us when we are faithful, when we are committed, when we follow God and we meet resistance on that? And so in that, Jesus says, "Blessed are you when people hate you, when they exclude you, when they revel you, when they defame you on account of the Son of Man." Now, we don't feel that blessing. We feel all of those struggles and those challenges. But what is it to evaluate your life and say, "Oh, I'm hated, I'm shamed, I'm being excluded because I am being faithful. And I need to realize that I am actually blessed, that I am not cursed, and that all of this on me is not negative judgment, but I can stand knowing that God sees me, that God is with me, and that I am blessed, even though my circumstances don't look like it." And so, when in our life have we felt that resistance, that pushback, because we have been following Christ's call for our life faithfully? When is it that you have heard God's blessing while people have hated you? People will hate you. And when people hate you on account of your following after Jesus, know that you are blessed. People will exclude you. People will push you away. People will not invite you in. And when they do that on account of Jesus, know that you are blessed. People will revel you. They'll insult you. They'll say bad things about you. And when they do that because of Christ, know that you are blessed. People will defame you. They'll shame you. They'll slander your reputation. And when they do that because of Christ, know that you are blessed. It is a painful thing to endure pushback because of your calling, because of what God is doing in you, because of who God is. But know that you are blessed even when it doesn't feel like it. And so I want to know, can we find peace? Can we find community in God? And can we trust God's faithfulness even when our neighbors hate us, even when they persecute us in the midst of our faithfulness? And so I want you to think about when you've experienced that frustration, that pain, that disappointment. Can you sense God's blessing and presence in your life even when others are falling away and are disappearing or pushing you away? I want to invite you to think about something else today, that we are not the only ones who've experienced pushback and resistance when following Christ. And so think about those Christians throughout all of time who have faced very visible persecutions, who've given their very lives in martyrdom for their faith. But there's also those just everyday life Christians who, while following God faithfully and trying to bring about goodness and love and peace, have been resisted, rejected, shamed. And I want to invite you to think about who in your life has been faithful in living out God's calling for their life, who has been faithful to the gospel and living it and speaking it. Meditate on who you've seen live out God's gospel, and think about who has experienced that resistance and that pushback. Do you know Christians who have lived this out well and who have been mistreated and abused for it? And I want you to think about what God might offer and invite you to do in response to that. Maybe you might be a blessing to someone today who has been faithful to the gospel and yet been persecuted. Would you consider reaching out, sharing a message of good news, of faith, of saying, I see you, you are blessed. Even if you don't feel it in this moment, even if you don't recognize it, God sees your faithfulness and you are blessed. So whether it's thinking and sitting and reflecting on the trials and the struggles that you've had in the midst of your faithfulness, or being aware and visibly noticing the trials that others are going through, I hope that you might let this text shape you today. And let me read it for you one more time in closing. That Jesus came down with them and stood on a level place with a great crowd of his disciples and a great multitude of people from all Judea, Jerusalem, and the coast of Tyre and Sidon. And then Jesus looked up at his disciples and said, Blessed are you when people hate you, and when they exclude you, revel you, and defame you on account of the Son of Man. The word of the Lord. May you find God's blessing even in the midst of being resisted. May you find love and joy and peace as you follow after wherever God is leading you today.
It is well with my soul. It is well with my